Developing leadership and confidence within people is certainly one of the key elements to the Career Competitor podcast, which is why we are proud to have the Lead Sports Academy as our presenting sponsor. Thanks to the vision of founder and three-time Olympian Carolyn Joyce, the Lead Sports Academy is giving girls in sports everywhere the opportunity for personal development through in-depth courses on confidence, leadership, sports psychology, as well as opportunities for other fantastic insight by signing up to the Lead Academy Club. If you go to leadsportsacademy.com today and enter promo code CAREER10 at checkout, that's the word career and the number 10, you can receive a 10% discount to their 8-session course. So as we provide content from successful women through this current series, the Lead Sports Academy are providing the tools for girls in sports everywhere to begin their journey to success. So don't miss out on this exclusive offer to Career Competitor listeners and go to leadsportsacademy.com today, enter promo code CAREER10 at checkout, and maybe it'll be your daughter that is changing the world in the future. And now, time for the show.
I'm an athlete, and I do believe it's part of my DNA. I'm grateful for it. You push me, I'm going to push back.
Hello there, and welcome into yet another installment of the Career Competitor podcast with me, Steve Meller, and as a member of the CG Sports Network, we are the show that seeks to light the competitive fire within you in order to succeed within your career. It gives me great pleasure to bring to you episode 8 in our series on women changing the world, and my guest for today is going to bring to light some difficult yet massively impactful stories that I promise are worth your time for tuning in today. As always, let me quickly remind you to take the time to review the show on iTunes if that is what you are currently listening to me on, and be sure to subscribe or follow the show on the podcasting platform you choose to use. We continue to look for fresh new ways to bring the show to a larger audience, so as you listen in right now, go ahead and take a snapshot maybe on your phone of the episode. Be sure to tag career_competitor if you're on Instagram and let us and your followers know what you think of the show. You can always find all my social media links at our website, careercompetitor.com, along with all our episodes, information on the show, and of course, be able to contact me directly, just like our guest for this episode went ahead and did, and now she's on the show. Today, I welcome Alison Hadden, a marketing executive with 20 years of highly competitive and successful experience across 3 different companies, where she has instilled her fighter DNA into those she recruits and works with in order to achieve optimal performance from everyone involved, creating unique and special working environments in the process. Sadly, Alison's story includes some recent hardships as she has battled cancer over the last 2 years of her life. But this difficult time inspired her to establish the No Time to Waste project, where she motivates people the world over to make the most of their time here on Earth, using the very personality traits and skill set that Alison has used in her very successful story so far. Here at Career Competitor, we do not shy away from the difficult discussions, so please listen to this interview with an open mind and a vulnerability in a sense, in that maybe there is room in your life for some difficult self-reflection and soul-searching in order to bring the very best out of yourself each and every day. Please hang around at the end of the interview also for my keys to success. But with all that said, let's welcome Alison Hadden to the show. Okay, well, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome on Alison Hadden to the show. Alison, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Steve. Really excited to be here. I'm glad we got everything working and we're ready to rock and roll.
Absolutely, yes. Those nobody else will know, but we had an enormous amount of technical difficulties before we started pressing record here. But like I said, it's wonderful to see you. Pleasure to have you on the show. And your ability to be on the show is so unique simply because you reached out to me. You did something that I encourage all my listeners to do, to come up to email me, let me know, hey, I think the stuff you're doing is good. That's always a nice compliment to hear. But then you actually introduced yourself to me, and I had to have you join us on this Women Changing the World series. So I am so thankful that you went and took the time to introduce yourself and contact me, and I'm so excited that it's now led to this interview. Before I talk any more, I would love for you to introduce yourself in more detail to all of our listeners.
Sure. Yeah. And I heard about the podcast after, I think probably 2 weeks ago now, I heard Amy, who was the VP at IDEA, share her story. And I was on a run. I live here in Boulder. I moved here in November, and I was on a run nearby in Mount Sanitas, and I love listening to podcasts when I run, unless I need to do some deep thinking, in which I put on some solid down-tempo beats, and I listened to her, and it was just such fantastic content. She was a fantastic guest. I thought you were great, and I realized, oh my gosh, this is custom built for kind of me and my story, and exactly the kind of platform where I'd want to share it, because I've been, as I say, a lifelong athlete, an adventurer my whole life, and the kind of interweaving of me as an athlete into the way that I have grown in my career and then later led teams. To me, as I've said, business has been my sport. So when I heard that you had this fantastic podcast where you were trying to combine, right, the sort of athlete mindset, or in many cases, a lifelong athlete like me, and how they've applied that into their professional lives, I was like, I got to talk to this guy. So I did reach out, and I'm glad it's been a great fit. I've been super excited to get to meet you. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I am, like I said, it's completely mutual. And as far as, you being a great candidate for the show, you've just alluded there to being a lifelong athlete. More specifically, though, to you, the career woman, tell us a little bit about your background in that area.
Sure. So over the last 20 years, I've really become sort of a sales and marketing generalist in a lot of ways. I started the majority of my first 10 years of my career at a company called Active.com, which then later became the Active Network. It was known at the time for being the first place for anyone that was running a 5K or signing up their kids for Little League. It was really the first place to do online registration for sports and participatory activities. I loved working at Active because it felt like my people, probably our people, right? Where absolutely. I told you when I joined that company, on everybody's cubicle was a wetsuit and a surfboard, because we were in downtown La Jolla, and everyone chose to go for a run at lunch. And it felt like a group of really smart, driven athletes, and it felt like a game, and it felt like a team again. And after college, I was really craving that. I then, after 10 years there, spent 6 years at Glassdoor, which a lot of people know now as the place to find, sort of reviews and ratings on different employers. I started there in sales training and enablement. Knew that despite having no marketing on my resume and no marketing education formally, that marketing was where I really was supposed to be. And I decided to take the job in sales enablement at Glassdoor and prove my worth. And my goal was to move over into marketing as soon as possible. And I did exactly that. And essentially, within a year, moved over into marketing. I was their first B2B marketing hire at Glassdoor. I then was given a ton of responsibility over time to really get to try all different types of things and learn on the job in a hyper-growth environment, which in my experience is a way to get on a really fast track. Sure. It's exhausting, and it feels like dog years when you're working for a startup like that. But right. I really earned my marketing chops there at Glassdoor. And the last 2 years, I was tapped to go to a company called MindBody, which a lot of people know as the software provider for a lot of yoga studios and boutique fitness studios. And then we moved into spa and salon. It's the software that helped those small businesses essentially power everything behind the scenes. I was brought on to help drive awareness around the consumer app that we built, which enabled people to essentially find and book drop-in fitness classes and wellness appointments in their local area at a discount, typically, kind of last minute. So taking advantage of dynamic pricing. So that was where I spent the last 2 years. It was an exciting challenge to take a B2B software company and try and have it move into a true marketplace company where they had both the wellness businesses, but then the wellness consumers that were on the platform, but got to lead sort of an advertising test there exposed the company for the first time to mass media advertising, and through a series of local market tests and sort of testing and optimizing and proving the value over the course of about a year and a half, we went with a national ad campaign for the first time under my leadership at the fall of last year, which was really successful. And I've come to a place where I'm really proud of my resume, because everything I have learned has been on the job in pretty challenging hypergrowth environments with really lean budgets and teams and operational constraints. And I think through it, though, I've been able to build that muscle of strategy, of sort of seeing the forest amongst the trees, of delivering results as opposed to just kind of being busy. And then most importantly, having a real eye for talent and making sure that I hire people around me who are far smarter than I ever will be, because that just helps elevate the team, Sure. And I think one of the through lines of my career, as anyone who's worked on my teams would attest to, is, the number of sports analogies that I've weaved in, the number of high fives. For me, as I said, business was my sport, and it didn't feel like work no matter how many hours I put in, because as long as it felt like a game, right, it just triggers the athlete in me that's never going to go away. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the hunt. I enjoyed the competition. And I enjoyed, having different finish lines in my career, and then crossing them off. So it's been a really wild ride the last 20 years or so.
Absolutely. And the most noticeable thing there for me is there's so many firsts, for you as an individual, but also for the companies that you're working with. It's noticeable that, you said it yourself, when you got into sales, you wanted to try things for the first time, and then you saw that marketing was in your future, and you just wanted that opportunity, and you knew at some point, hey, this was going to be me for the first time. And then then you bring it all the way up to the most recent, and you talk about the first ever national ad campaign, like so many firsts. And I think that says so much about your personality and the ability that you've been able to have in terms of incorporating that into your work. Like you said, business is your sport, but that only works if you're remaining completely true to who you are. I think that's what I love about sport, is that you get to be completely true to who you are. You get to compete on the level that you want to. You get to do the sports that you want to. It's all about remaining true to who you are. So, just with regards to all of this, tell us just a little bit about your attitude towards your work over these 20 years that you've now sort of represented to us, in terms of how you've been able to best represent you as a person. I know you touched on there the high fives and the camaraderie and all that kind of thing, but there's probably more of a conscious effort on your part to really instill yourself and your personality into your work. So talk to us a little bit about how you were best able to do that.
Yeah, I think first for me, I've only really worked for 3 companies in my life. So choosing for me the company that I was going to work for was almost more important than the role that I initially took. Because for the 2 of the 3 companies, I moved around, right? I was given increasing responsibility. I saw, little goals for myself as ways to move up and ways to move over. In terms of kind of integrating myself throughout that process, I have to make sure I have to make sure I pick the right team first. Right. So in order to take someone with my personality, right, and that athlete mindset, I'm intense. This is, there is no doubt about that, right? I have a lot of energy. I have a lot of passion. I have a drive system that is more powerful than most. And as long as it is pointed in the right direction, I can move mountains, right? Especially when I'm surrounded by or leading teams that all offer skills where I lack or are some of my weaknesses, right? I always think about together as a group, we can move mountains, and always use analogies like, you can get up the hill if you've got the one rock on your back, right? But you're only going to move as fast as one person can. But if you're able to have a group of people around you. So having that mindset. So I think it's choosing the company first. I need to be working with other people who, regardless if they were Olympians or pros or elite athletes or even amateurs, they have to have a kind of hard driving athlete type culture, right? An athlete type,
like a pedigree almost. Yeah.
Correct. Right. And again, this is just where I've found in my career that I gel best. It doesn't mean that other types of cultures aren't super successful and great places to work. But for me, in order for me to like really be able to accelerate and deliver as much value as I can as a leader to a company, it's got to be the right culture, right? So it's got to be the right people, the right sort of hard driving mindset, people, a culture that thrives on competition, a culture that thrives and is adaptable to change, right? One that is willing to innovate and try new things and place bets, right? Because that's all of the sort of, I guess, risk taking and the excitement that me as an athlete that I'm always going to be driven to, attracted to. Part of the entrepreneur in me, which has always been here since I've been younger. I thrive in an entrepreneurial type environment where I'm given autonomy and ownership to come up with ideas, to come up with plans, to build things from the ground up and build orgs from the ground up the right way. And then basically empower those people that are working for me to get the best out of them and basically bring the athlete out of them. I haven't always hired athletes, but I have always looked for the type of qualities that I believe make up successful athletes, which is, you know, grit and resilience, right? I want to see somebody who, you know, get down, you know, they get knocked down and they get back up again.
Exactly.
Right. Someone who's told it can't be done and they go, let me just give it one more shot. Right. You know, and it's a challenger kind of mentality. And that's not everybody. And it's also not to say that there aren't tons of successful people that don't kind of map to those qualities. But when I think about the best people that I've hired, you know, even the less aggressive or dominant personality types, they've all had that inner grit and resilience and desire to play the game and want to win. That has just fueled me and made me feel incredibly engaged in some of the roles where I've led.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And if you're listening to this and you still haven't figured out why it was that Alison's on this podcast right now, you've not been listening carefully enough. You know, for us, in terms of what we've now been doing in the existence of this podcast, it's about doing exactly what you're talking about. It's about taking the mindset of an athlete, and that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be an Olympic champion. It just simply means that you have to have these characteristics that are a part of your blueprint, as a part of your DNA, that make up who you are, that given the circumstances, no matter what it may be, whether it's an opportunity to win or an opportunity where there is plenty of adversity in front of you, as you were just attesting to, it's about having the tools in your toolbox to take it on and give it a go, and want to give it a go more than anything. You know, really relish that opportunity to say, hey, this could be difficult, but I want the opportunity nonetheless. And like I said, that's all about being an athlete. That really is all about what Career Competitor is. And in terms of you joining the show, there is another component to you being here as well, for us to discuss within this interview today on a more personal level. So just to educate everybody, just bring everybody up to speed in terms of your personal story over the last couple of years, Alison.
Yeah, sure. So about 2 years ago, almost exactly, feeling super healthy, fit, was coming off of injury, was ready to start racing. I really fell in love with trail running when I lived in Marin, outside San Francisco, for that 6-year period. And I was diagnosed with, surprisingly, with triple negative breast cancer 2 years ago. And again, it was super surprising. I don't drink, I don't smoke. I have this sort of athlete mentality, and physical activity is just something that's part of me and something that I do every day for my own sanity and probably those around me. So for people, it was like, you know, my gosh, you're like the healthiest person we know. This doesn't make any sense, right? And what I've learned is like cancer doesn't really discriminate, right? And it doesn't make sense. And it's a real shame that we haven't figured it out yet. And so basically for the last 2 years, I've been on this journey where, you know, I went through 15 months of treatment. And while I was sort of wrapping up kind of the tail end in the fall of last year of that segment of treatment, I just, I realized through treatment, I was really doubling down on a lot of the athlete type strategies, the athlete mindset, right? When I got the first diagnosis, I make the joke in a TEDx talk that I delivered earlier this year, which was the first thing I did was, well, I need to get some office supplies. And I've got to get a calendar, and I've got to get all my stuff together. And like, basically I was like, I got to put together a plan. Yep. Right. What's my training plan? And the reality is, I was like, this is going to be a really tough block that's in front of me. But I'm not going to get ahead of that. I'm just going to think about what's the next indicated step, but I need to map it out. Right. So I put together that training plan, and I made it through, 5 months of chemo and 2 months of radiation and a mastectomy. And then I went on 6 months of oral chemo in the end of last year. Which was great because, the nice thing is, and I do believe this, like, I believe there is a significant amount of luck that is involved in all of this, but I do believe that a positive mindset undoubtedly has an impact on your mindset and your quality of life, regardless of how things shake out, right? Yeah. And for me, through treatment, having that athlete mindset and making sure that I was physically active, if not every day, almost every day. And some days it was going in and working with a trainer in the gym. Some days it was a run. I mean, it was like a jog, right? It was not my normal self. Some days it was like, okay, like 10 minutes around the block was kind of like all I could do. Sure. But maintaining that connection for me as an athlete to physical activity throughout treatment for me was really, I think, critical to having that hope and that mindset and feeling like myself even when I didn't look like myself.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense with me, because one of the things I stress as a coach, and I know probably hundreds of coaches the world over do the same thing, is they emphasize to their athletes that being at 100% every day is unrealistic to expect, but can you be 100% of what you are that day? And it sounds like you are explaining exactly that, even on the days where you maybe had only the energy to get out of bed and put your workout clothes on and get around the block a couple times, you had that mindset of, I'm still going to do that. And in terms of everything that led up to the point of finding out that you were being diagnosed with cancer and then dealing with the last 18 months to 2 years, can you figure out what it was about the years up to that best prepared you to have this incredible mindset that you've had over these last 2 years?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, I think just sort of attacking life with all of its ups and downs, right? I've had a very colorful past with many other ups and downs before cancer.
Sure.
I think for me, I have a bias towards action, right? Yep. And it's no better, no worse. But for me, staying moving physically helps me navigate things, being up and about. And I'm when people are like, I just don't know how you're doing it. Like, you're still working, because I worked full time throughout treatment. And I really thank MindBody and my previous boss, CMO, Josh Todd, for giving me the freedom and the autonomy to kind of lean in when I needed to and lean out. Working throughout treatment was really important to me because, again, working and having a physical regimen every day were like the touchstones to me. Yeah. Because when you lose your hair and you lose your eyebrows and you look in the mirror and you feel like you're a sick cancer patient, you're like, you want to hold on to the stuff that reminds you you're still you, right? Of course. Yeah. So I think, again, having that athlete mindset my whole life, being taught by my parents, to just have that never quit, attitude of just the stick-to-itiveness. And again, like, I can be a pistol. I'm not saying that it's always a great quality. Right. As I've gotten older, I've learned how to channel it in the right direction. Yeah. But I think it's, even this year, have come across other setbacks with discovering a brain tumor earlier this year, which was a total shock. Had successful brain surgery, recovered from that, and started building again when that happened at the end of April. Just trying to roll with it, because I think in sports, I always say sports because I'm from here, but I like hearing the sport. So, in sport, the reality is like, you can only control so much. Right. And you're typically competing against either other individuals or other teams. And sometimes you can train and train and train, and you visualize and you've got it. And then on game day, like, it's just not your day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think applying that and just going, I'm going to do whatever I can do that's within my sliver of control in this life or in this situation. And the rest is that's the roll of the dice that I can't control. Mm-hmm. Right. So I apply those principles now. Any setbacks that I have, with cancer, I have to just look at and go, okay, it's just going to be another tough training block. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And I have to, instead of going down the rabbit hole of future, I have to think about, what do I need to focus on right now? What's the training plan for right now? Let's get out the calendar. Let's buy a new calendar and start fresh and be like, okay, so here's what we're looking at for the next 2 weeks. Again, for me, regardless if I'm training or racing or feeling physically strong, I'm an athlete. Yeah. Period. Right. Yeah. And I do believe it's part of my DNA, and it's been part of my DNA since I was a kid. And I'm grateful for it, because if I didn't have this foundational DNA of how to attack things, and instead of facing challenges and going, I give up, right? Or I can't do it. Mm-hmm. Right. Instead, it's that, you push me, I'm going to push back. Yeah. And again, usually that's helpful, but
I mean, I can't help but just hear so much of what you're saying and hear an athlete talking. Like that's what's crazy about this whole thing, is because for me, when I stumbled along your email and I read it, and I told you this when we first spoke, I was outside a Costco parking lot ready to go and load up for another couple of weeks on behalf of the family. And I didn't move from my car for about 10 minutes as I read your email. I was just completely stuck, thinking and just taking it all in. Because the one thing that I couldn't sort of just let go of was the fact that here is a person that has been dealt a tough hand, a really tough hand. And throughout it, all they've done is say, okay, next day, here we go. Let's take it on. What's the plan? What's the process going to be today? And for me, as someone who has lived his life this exact same way without any of this type of adversity over the last couple of years, I was just in awe of it, because it immediately made me wonder, would you still be able to do this, Steve, if you were handed this news? And seeing someone like yourself doing what it is you've been doing these last 2 years, it actually gave me the mindset that, you know what, maybe I would be capable of dealing with something like this one day. And I think that, for anyone listening, is something I really want to emphasize, is that I think so often we try to shy away from this difficult stuff. And I think what we should be doing is discussing, hey, listen, this is how we should all be dealing with this. This is how we should all be looking at this stuff. And a big part of this as well is the fact that you have been so public about this story as well. And you have this incredible movement called No Time to Waste. And it is an initiative that has presented your story, your life's purpose, so many other things too. And I know that you've already got such a great following through it as well. And I hope this interview obviously does even more for it. What is it about your journey that you feel is so important to be sharing when it comes to what we've just discussed here in the last couple of minutes? Because, as you said, you have every right to be quiet and be private about this, but you don't. You choose to be public. So just sort of tell me what it is why it is that you want to share this journey with everybody.
Yeah, I think it's, and even more so, it's like every time I feel like I get, knocked down on this whole cancer journey, just freaking wanting a break. I believe everything happens for a reason. I think I've always spent my life really grateful for the experiences that I've had, the highs and the lows. I've been someone who, has seen incredible things and have been super fortunate to get to travel and do cool stuff and epic stuff and see the world. And I've never taken any of it for granted. I've always been hyper aware of the fact that we're all not going to live forever. And I've always thought about that.
Sure.
Obviously, in the last 2 years, I have probably thought about death and dying
Mm-hmm.
more than the rest of my life combined. But what I realized last fall was, um, and encouraged by other people, when I was like, there is no time to waste.
Mm-hmm.
When I was facing death, right, and now I have a couple times,
Mm-hmm.
um, everything became crystal clear around what matters and what doesn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the things that I like to talk about with living life like there's no time to waste is first confronting that idea that, as much as it's really scary and it's called death anxiety and it's a real thing,
Sure.
we're not, nobody's immortal.
Yeah.
um, and tragic things happen, and many times lives are cut short and we're shocked and surprised,
Mm-hmm.
right? And realizing that, I think about everything in terms of 24-hour periods so that we all can kind of assess our lives, and when our head hits the pillow at the end of the night, we can go, man, I really did it today.
Yeah.
I really gave it everything I got. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, from an athlete mindset, that means I gave everything I could 110%, but it's also, I gave the important things, the things that really mattered, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I talk a lot about gratitude. I talk a lot about human connection and relationships. And I talk a lot about leaning into joy and finding the things that light you up and having different exercises and tools that people can integrate every day so that they can live like there's no time to waste.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, now things are at the forefront again, and thinking about doubling down on this idea, and getting now positive feedback after being on stages and speaking and being on podcasts like this. I have gotten such positive feedback from people that said, by listening and following No Time to Waste Project on Instagram and watching you speak, like, I have reevaluated my life, and I have started to think about what really matters to me. And I have started to realize I need to live like there's no time to waste. We all do.
Yeah.
Right. What I want, and my kind of personal mission, I think now they call it mortality legacy awareness. When, the closer you get to death, the more you think about what you're going to leave behind, and it
Sure.
becomes highly important. And that drive system of mine just gets channeled in a different direction.
Sure.
But basically, there are very common deathbed regrets that people have at the end of their lives, whenever that is. And
Yeah.
it's usually about, I wish I worked less. I wish I let myself be happier.
Yeah.
I wish I lived life for myself instead of the expectations of other people, and a couple other things. And, if I can help people not have as many or any regrets when they are facing that day, because they lived every single day like there was no time to waste, that makes me feel like whatever I'm going through is worth it.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And you got me going too. the the one thing, Allison, is just like I can't quite grasp the way in which you've handled these last 2 years, in the sense that, because I'm a pretty, even though I had this thing in a podcast that it's a public thing, I'm actually a pretty private guy, I would say. If I have my struggles, I try to sort of say, listen, these are my struggles. I'm not gonna ask for sympathy. I'm not gonna ask for your help or anything like that.
right.
And I think what this has made me see is that, first and foremost, that is 100% not what you're doing. You are making this a public thing so that you get the types of response and make the types of impact that you've just addressed there. In that you're going to have people reaching out, you're going to have podcast hosts that want to hear your story and want people to hear it, because it's going to make people think. It's going to force people to ask themselves some tough questions. And I personally am such an advocate for that, because life, like you said, it is too short. There is no time to waste. And if you look at yourself in the mirror every day, before you start the day, and ask yourself what you're going to accomplish, and at the end of the day, ask yourself again, what have I accomplished? And feel really good about those two answers. I think there's a lot of joy that you can start to find in life, and as you put it, leading towards joy. And it's just an incredible story. And I think the one thing that I would also just love to add is that, we make a big I personally make a big deal on this show about I believe in order to be successful in a career and be happy in a career, you need to be you. You have to be you. And a big part of that is dealing with who you are outside of that career, outside of that job. And everything that you told me here, the consistency of who you are is incredible to me. Like the person that you've described as an athlete, the person that you've described in your younger years, in the present, through your career, all these different stages, through what you've gone through the last 2 years, the consistency of that person is something that anyone listening to this should be aspiring towards, because that, for me, that consistency in yourself is what's going to actually make every other component in your life, firstly, enjoyable, because you're going to be really comfortable with who you are. But secondly, the likelihood of you being successful is incredibly improved, because you never have to analyze or worry about what version of yourself is going to be put out there to the universe. And I think I think just listening to you and the consistency in your behavior and your character and your personality is something that I am truly just incredibly in awe of. And I have to give you the opportunity to tell everybody where they can learn more about the No Time to Waste movement and all the great social stuff that you've been doing recently.
Sure. And I just want to say two things. One, like any athlete, you mentioned earlier about, you're questioning yourself of whether or not you would rise to the occasion if you were presented with challenge and difficulty. And I guarantee you would, Steve, right? I guarantee everybody has the potential to, right? It's just a matter of if they have the tools and also the support of people around them to have the encouragement to do it. Two, this has been a lifetime of learning about myself and becoming more comfortable with myself over time. I would hope that I've been myself and I've been authentic since I was a kid, but it's come through a lot of work and a lot of therapy. Right. So I am happy that I'm in a place now, where again, I know what matters and what doesn't. And, WYSIWYG, as they say in tech, which is what you see is what you get.
Yep.
I'm not putting on airs anymore. So yeah, I encourage anybody to follow No Time to Waste Project on Instagram. And feel free to visit my website at notimetowasteproject.com. We also, I'm going to be hosting an Instagram live every Friday, at least for the next couple Fridays. Friday mornings at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. So I'm excited to share the stories, not of me, but the stories of other people that I believe are living life like there's no time to waste, which doesn't mean they have to have battled cancer. It just means, hey, they're living life with a highly intentional life, and it's focused on gratitude and human connection and joy. And I want to share their stories with the world. So that's my stuff.
That's great. That's great. Well, we have that in common in the sense that we're both using our platforms just to highlight other people. And I cannot thank you enough for your time, Alison. I am so thankful that your email came across me, and we have this opportunity to speak, that I get to call you a friend. I get to say you're someone that I've had the pleasure of getting to know. I'm a fan of yours. I have your back, so to speak. I'm so excited just to watch you continue moving forwards and kind of kicking butt whenever you need to, and being really excited about just being one of many, many, many people that are going to be supporting you through that. So Alison, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thanks again.
Thanks, Steve. It's been an honor. It's been really, really fantastic.
My thanks again to Alison for joining us on Career Competitor today. And like I said at the outset, we were going to be discussing some difficult topics, but the power, the impact of the messages that you just heard, I hope, really hit you on a variety of levels. And I'm going to try and sum up the 3 components that I took away from the discussion in my Career Competitor Keys to Success. And as always, I'm going to be starting with my competitive call. My competitive call for this episode is remaining present. One of these competitive calls that isn't exactly a trait, but an art form as such, in that if you are able to live in the present, in the moment, then you are someone who is always capable of taking advantage of anything that comes your way. Alison has never allowed any success in her career or adversities in her personal life pull her out of the present. Allowing success to distract you from the present can lead to complacency, assuming more success will be handed to you. If you let adversity pull you out of the present, then you might extinguish the very fire you need to overcome it. Now more than ever, the need to remain in the moment and not get ahead of yourself is paramount. So think about instilling this competitive call. Next is my teachable takeaway. What is the best working environment for you to be at your best? As Alison said, culture is everything. To the point where she has been willing to select the culture, the team, the organization that she wants to be a part of firstly, over that of the role itself. But she also knew she was capable of finding and creating the eventual role she wanted to. A special gift for sure. But take this lesson into your working world and ask yourself if you're working in the right environment to bring out your optimal self. And if not, then how can you fix that? Something to think about for sure. And finally, my motivational move. I'm going to keep this one very simple for everyone. Live like there is no time to waste. What is there left to say here that hasn't already been said? Think of this episode, think of Alison, think of myself as a voice in your head that you needed to hear today, no matter what your circumstances might be at this point of your life. If you still need another example of what it means to live like there is no time to waste, then what if I told you less than 24 hours prior to our interview, despite believing the removal of the metastatic brain tumor 3 months ago would leave her cancer-free for a long time, Alison was informed that the cancer has returned in her chest, and she must now head back into chemotherapy treatment this week to begin fighting for her life yet again. This time, trying to slow the growth in order to extend her time on Earth as much as possible now that her cancer is in the terminal stage. Somehow, despite this awful news, less than 24 hours after receiving it, she wanted to come on this podcast and tell you. She wanted you to know you must live like there is no time to waste. She came here in an attempt to motivate you, to inspire you. So do not let her down. Drop any negativity you are carrying. Make amends with someone maybe you may have fallen out with. Just don't waste your time on Earth. Make an impact on something and someone in some way, each and every day. And when life gets tough, just appreciate the fact that you are here, that you are built for this, and capable of taking on anything that is put in front of you. Alison Hadden, a woman that is truly changing the world. We are all fortunate to have heard from her today. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Career Competitor. I look forward to bringing you more episodes within this series and speaking with you all again very soon. Take care of yourself. Bye for now.